All right, and we should be live. Welcome, everyone. Oh, wait, no, I have to hit the go live on YouTube. Or wait, maybe I am live on YouTube. I don't know how this new YouTube streaming thing works, honestly. But anyway, I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. I am here with Eric. Say hello, Eric.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. So, we're going to talk about stuff about Godzilla because we're both Godzilla nerds. So,
Mm-hmm. And this is something what we've been wanting to do for a while. I believe that we first found out that we are both Godzilla fans because of when we did the after show for my Ken Hovind debate.
that could be right, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it's not like I keep a lid on it. My stream start soon screen that I use for most of my streams is from Shin Godzilla, so it's
Yeah.
it's not something I keep on the DL. In fact, actually, there's a Godzilla themed video on for my patrons only. It's unlisted, so if you want access to it, you're gonna see it. But it's it's basically my avatar coming out of the ocean like Godzilla and breathing some fire, doing the Godzilla roar, all with the
Nice.
Godzilla theme song. So if you want to see that, go give me $1. Give me $1 and you can see it. It's on Patreon. Patreon
every single dollar adds up.
It does actually. I mean, it really does. I appreciate
And
every little bit, but
so you have to get to a certain amount on the whole thing to get to full time, from my understanding, like certain 1,000 or something like that.
I mean, it's going to depend on exactly what you have in your budget, but to make it sustainable, you need to have. If you want to do it just on ads, you're from YouTube and stuff like that, you're probably going to need a few million views a month. But if you toss in things like Patreon, super chats, things like that, it's a lot easier. But we're not here to talk about financials. We're here to talk about a giant freaking lizard who stomps around mostly Japan, but every once in a while shows up elsewhere.
The one, the only Godzilla.
Yeah, which actually I had forgotten until this year that in the Showa period, Godzilla wrecked up New York. 1993 wasn't the first time.
Really? It's been a while since I've seen some of the Showa era movies. It's because the fact that, the Showa era is kind of, I mean, I won't say like it's every single movie in the franchise, but there are definitely some out there that are really hard to, there are definitely some movies in that era that are hard to get a hold of, especially the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I tried my hardest to get that on DVD, but if you want to buy that off of Amazon, you have to bust an arm and a leg. And then I was trying every website I could just to get that on DVD, but I had no luck. So eventually I just gave up and I just resorted to VHS. So
VHS, wow. They don't even make VCRs anymore. There are no VCRs available.
Also with Godzilla 1985, I know it's not in the Showa era, but the American version has never been released on DVD, and so the only way I can watch that is on VHS.
Now, when you say the American version, do you mean the American cut or just a dub or a subtitle version of the Japanese cut?
When I say the American version, I mean like the Americanized one with Raymond Burr.
Okay, yeah. That was the last version I saw of it. I don't prefer that version. I actually like the Japanese cut better.
Yeah.
One because it doesn't overly vilify the Soviet officer in the submarine and the Japanese cut actually prevents the launch of the nuclear missile. Whereas in the US cut, or maybe he cancels the warhead or something, he's the one who actually ends up saving the day. Whereas in the US version, the US tries to intercept it with some missile that they fire, and he's just a dick who dies firing a nuclear missile at Japan.
Yeah, pretty much. And, that has been the most controversial aspect of the 1985 version, which I can definitely understand why. And I mean, I also think that there's a lot more wrong with Godzilla 1985 than just that compared to the Japanese version. The Japanese version is a lot better.
The Japanese version wasn't full of Dr. Pepper placements.
Yeah. I mean, just that product placement. I mean,
But it got us all those wonderfully terrible Godzilla Dr. Pepper ads that you can still find on YouTube.
Yeah, like wasn't there one where Godzilla and some basketball player were playing basketball in a city?
Yeah, there was. I think it was Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, that one was terrible. And
I
I
mean,
was
they're
gonna
all
say about the
terrible.
product placement. I don't know what's worse, that product placement or the product placement in the 2017 Power Rangers, which is kind of ironic because I'm wearing the shirt. So.
Oh, yeah, the Krispy Kreme thing was a little weird, but No Name says, or no, sorry, Aqua Groundhog said, Americans need to make the communists look bad. You know what? They don't. Communists look bad enough on their own.
Yeah.
all of the famines and inability to keep power on in the cities and the death camps and the gulags. Yeah,
So
communism doesn't need any help from Americans to look bad.
yeah. So probably a fair question. What got you into the Godzilla franchise?
I mean, I watched them as a kid. I watched. So I guess you can actually go back farther. So my mom was the youngest of 12, but it just so happened that most of her siblings who were around her age, because by the time she was born, her oldest sibling had already moved out and gotten married.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like 20 years younger or so than her oldest sibling. But the siblings who were close enough to her age for her to have actually grown up with them in the house were mostly brothers. And they watched a lot of Godzilla movies because they would come on like, Friday evenings or something on whichever channel it was. And, they would the same channel would show things like The Blob or other sort of 60s, 70s horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Or monster movies, I guess, because I don't know. Godzilla movies really aren't horror movies.
Some are more horror-like than others, but for the most part, yeah, they're not really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but that meant that was something that. Oh, and we got a $2 super chat from Adam Morgan. TriStar 1998 Godzilla theropod was atrocious. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So that has to tie in with how I got into the franchise, and so I know a lot of people hate this movie. Now, granted, I can acknowledge, yes, it does have a lot of problems.
Yes.
Now, it's somewhat of a guilty pleasure for me, and I have a little bit of a soft spot for it for the nostalgia. But at the same time, though, I also don't want to let the nostalgia blind me.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Yes, I could definitely acknowledge it has its problems. But what got me into Godzilla, I remember when I was really, really little, when I was in preschool, it was at that time was when the 1998 Godzilla came out, and I didn't see it in theaters. But however, though, I remember when it came out on VHS, I actually remember seeing this ad on TV. You know that one part in the 98 movie when Zilla was grabbing onto that building and, and then put its neck up and then was roaring in the sky?
Yeah, no, I remember that.
So what they did in the ad for the VHS, they just edited out that building, and then rather than the building, it was like the VHS itself.
That's clever. I like that, actually. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and I remember watching that movie constantly as a kid, and now this is funny because a lot of people usually want to do this with a movie like that. People usually cry during, I don't know, like Titanic, or they'll cry like during Old Yeller. But when I was really little, at the very end, when I got to the part like when Zilla got killed, like when he was caught in the bridge, I would always cry like a baby.
See, the thing that bothers me most about there's a few things that really bother me, but that's actually one of the things that bothers me most about the movie.
And I can definitely understand.
Godzilla is not supposed to be susceptible to standard military hardware.
Yeah, definitely not. And the fact that Zilla looked nothing like Godzilla, and the fact he didn't even have the atomic breath, but at least he had spikes on his back, and at least he had the roar. But that's still not saying.
Alam makes a good point. So says Godzilla was considered horror back then. Stephen King wrote a great history called Dance Macabre, where he explained how sci-fi and horror reflect society. Godzilla was a metaphor for nuclear horrors. It's definitely true. The first Godzilla movie was much more of a horror movie than most of the later ones.
And
but
right, yeah, and
that kind of fell away pretty fast, and it didn't really come back, I don't think, until Shin Godzilla. Well, 84 tried to go in that direction, but I don't think it really went there to the same degree as 1954. I think the next movie that really got there was Shin Godzilla in 2016.
Right, yeah, and that was why that I said some were more horror than others. But yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned how Shin Godzilla was like a horror movie, because that's actually what I was hoping that the 2014 movie would have been. And and all the trailers made it seem like that's the route that they were going to go down. And so then I was hyped like no other. It was because of the fact that I wanted Godzilla to have a second chance and Godzilla to be taken more seriously. And I thought that the perfect way for people to take him seriously is if they went more down the horror route. And Godzilla 2014 kind of taught me a lesson. I'm not saying the movie was flat out terrible. I mean, there are movies in the franchise that are a lot worse. But I'm going to be honest with you, I was disappointed.
Okay. What do you think what's your number one complaint for it?
Well, it was the fact, it was just the misleading marketing. I mean, that's not so much of a problem with the movie itself. It was just the fact that, it was kind of like with M. Night Shyamalan, how you pronounce his last name, The Village, that all of the trailers for that made it look like a really intense horror movie.
Which it was not.
Right. It wasn't even a horror movie at all. It's like, and
the twist was too obvious.
Right. Who should know, how to market your own movie? And another problem I had, spoiler alert, I think that they killed off Bryan Cranston's character way too soon.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's one of everyone's complaints about the 2014 Godzilla. I still think overall it's a fun movie, and I enjoy it. I think everyone's two biggest criticisms were Bryan Cranston, who was by far the best human character.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He should have survived much longer. His son was kind of boring, and honestly,
yeah,
I could have done without that whole plot about his son trying to get back to his wife and son in where do they live? New York or San Diego or something?
I think it was New York. I can't really remember, but yeah.
No, it had to be on the West Coast because Godzilla hit Hawaii first, and then he went to someplace on the West Coast, and that's where he wrecked up the city where the guy's wife was. Maybe
another problem that I had. I know we've all heard it by now. It was just I really didn't like how just right before that fight was about to begin, like that, they would cut away and then you would see it on the TV.
Yeah, it was an odd choice for presentation. Yeah, and of course, the lack of Godzilla airtime or screen time is the other big complaint that everyone has because he has less than 10 minutes of screen time in that almost 2-hour movie.
And people have also argued that, Godzilla didn't have much screen time in the original. Yes, but the thing is, what they did to make up for that is that you would just hear his roar in the background, or you would see his footprints.
He was all.
It was
after the reveal.
Right. It was something like that would make you. It was something like that would make you hype up his anticipation. It was kind of like how in the original Jaws, in the first half, you don't really see the shark a lot. And then you only saw his fin or point of view, or you would only just hear that song play.
Right. Yeah, he's always an on-screen presence in a way that just isn't the case in the 2014 Godzilla. But how do you think? Okay, so first, who in the chat hasn't seen a Godzilla movie? Because I know that there are some of you out there. At least one person.
And now, they probably haven't seen every single one.
Oh, I mean, most people haven't. Most people who are Godzilla fans have trouble seeing every single one because basically you have to pirate if you want to.
And like I said, some of them are really hard to get a hold of. What I wish that they would do, I know it would kind of be a hassle because of different companies owning the movies, but it has been pulled off before, with the Halloween movies. What they should do is make a whole box set of every Godzilla movie and release it to every region.
All right. Well, first of all,
That would be awesome, but that's going to be really hard to. That's going to be hard to pull off.
I got to say, the first 5 minutes of Up are one of the best cinematic love stories of all time. So there's that. But here's some people who haven't seen Godzilla movies. We've got Maya, and we've got.
Hello, Maya.
I never know exactly how I'm supposed to pronounce that, so I'm just not going to.
Blust sa, blut sa.
Yeah, so you know. No one knows.
At least I tried, but yeah,
and
so
Dark Knight Apologetics is scene 1 or 2. So what would you say is the big appeal of the movies? Because part of it for me is just watching people in dumb costumes punch each other on a model set, because it's amazingly amusing.
Yeah, and I mean it varies per movie, which is what I think is part of the appeal factor to Godzilla, is the fact that there are numerous versions of Godzilla, kind of like there's all these numerous versions of Batman. Like, there's the more serious Godzilla, there's the more lighthearted Godzilla, and I think that one part of the appeal is is like some of the cheesy movies, just so you can laugh and have a good time with it.
Right.
And who can laugh at the really bad dubbing and whatnot. And part of the other appeal to it is like, what the more serious ones is all of like the symbolism of World War II, and it really makes you think.
Okay.
And also the fact that now there's some debate whether or not a Godzilla is a dinosaur or not. It kind of varies which movie you're talking about, but also the fact that dinosaurs are really popular and always have been. I also think that too plays into Godzilla's appeal.
I'm going to say that Godzilla is actually, as shown in most of the movies, he's actually more of a synapsid than a dinosaur. A fairly basal, probably a therapsid.
Yeah, and also the fact that Godzilla's posture isn't really accurate to what we know now. But at the same time, though, when they did the original Godzilla, I mean, that wasn't really known at that time, and so.
Oh, Alum, which Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, though? Did you see the original one? Or did you see the one from, well, there was one in the Heisei era, then there was...
Godzilla against Mechagodzilla in the...
Yeah, in the Heisei series. Yeah. So you can't just say Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, because there's a few movies that could be referred to that way.
Yeah.
Actually, I just watched... Before the stream, my next video is rendering right now, and I try not to do a huge amount with my computer while there's stuff rendering on it. This is an exception. So I was like, I'll just watch a movie, and my upstairs neighbors was blaring music annoyingly loud, so I decided to blare Godzilla annoyingly loud. And so I put on Godzilla versus Monster Zero.
I haven't seen that one in so long. I haven't seen that since last time I saw that one, honestly, was when I was a little kid and I rented it on VHS at Hastings. And that's something that I forgot to mention when I was little. After I saw the 98 movie, I remember that my mom and we would always go to Hastings, and every movie that I would always rent, it would always be a Godzilla movie on VHS. I would rent Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, the original. I rented 85. I rented Biollante. I rented Godzilla versus Gigan. And what I remember most was that when I was watching Godzilla versus Gigan, at that part when Gigan was, bashing Godzilla's head with his hook-like hands, I remember I was watching that with my mom, and my mom had that look on her face this is kind of violent. And so then afterwards, she would cover up my eyes.
Yeah, so one thing is, I showed two of my nieces and one of my nephews the first Godzilla movie recently, and it was what was it? I think it was Godzilla versus the Astro Monster, which is another one with King Ghidorah or Ghidorah or however you want to pronounce that, which I'm not picky about.
Wasn't that the one where Godzilla does that? Wasn't that the one like where Godzilla does that infamous victory dance?
No, that was Godzilla versus Monster Zero.
Oh,
but yeah. So, and there's my dad, their grandfather, saying, and these kids are all like 6, and he's like, if they have nightmares, it's going to be your fault. And my mom, who of course has seen most of these movies, is like, they just watched the Batman Lego movie. It's way more intense than anything that's going to happen in this Godzilla movie. I promise.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Like if the Showas, the ones from the 60s and the 70s, and I guess the 50s too. They're maybe not the first Godzilla movie, but after that, yeah, your kids are not going to get horrified and upset by watching a Godzilla movie. They'll be fine. Yeah,
and that kind of sounds like the situation like with my nephew. And so right now my nephew's really into not Jurassic Park. He's really into dinosaurs, and then I think that's why that my nephew loves me so much. And then I always wanted to pass on the torch, onto him. It was because of the fact that I was in the Godzilla when he was a kid. And then I wanted to show him a Godzilla movie. And then I wanted to show him one of the more kid-friendly ones, so I decided to show him Godzilla versus Megalon. But his parents are pretty strict, and
Godzilla versus Megalon, starting with one of the more interesting ones there.
Right, yeah, and so and then my nephew was liking it and all, but then his mom came in and she was like, Eric, I understand that this is one of the more kid-friendly ones, but because of their fighting, I don't want to watching it. And my nephew threw a huge fit. I mean, it got really bad.
So there is a question here. The Godzilla versus King Kong, Japanese versus American one. So that's actually a bit of a myth. There isn't actually any major difference in terms of the plot or the outcome of the fight between the Japanese version and the English dub. So the rumor is that in the Japanese version, Godzilla is the obvious winner of the fight, and that King Kong loses, whereas in the American version, King Kong wins. But the thing is, actually, in both versions, King Kong wins that fight, and the reason is because at the time, King Kong was more popular in Japan than Godzilla was, which is currently, it feels kind of hard to believe. Like, that's definitely not the case right now.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
But yeah, King Kong was a more popular character than Godzilla at the time.
And from my understanding, that whole rumor started, and I actually remember reading this book back in elementary school. That whole rumor got started. It was because of this one children's book, either about Godzilla or King Kong. It was about one of them. But that whole rumor started in that book, saying how in one version Godzilla wins and the other King Kong wins. So yeah, so maybe they were lying, or maybe they were just misinformed. But when I first found out that was not true, it actually was when that I first saw AVGN's video about the whole series.
Oh, hi, Sammy Jenkins.
Hello.
Or remember Sammy Jenkins. I don't know. Sorry. Just cutting off the first word. Go ahead. So keep going. Sorry.
And so interesting enough about Godzilla and King Kong, they actually tried to do a remake of it back in the Heisei series, but Toho wasn't able to get the rights to King Kong. And then they thought, hey, how about instead of King Kong, how about Mecha Kong? Well, they couldn't get the rights to that either, and then that was why instead of a Godzilla versus King Kong remake in the Heisei series, we instead got Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Which
I like that movie. So, well, okay, I like aspects of that movie. The time travelness, there's a lot of plot holes. However,
There
the
is.
fights are fun. The weird robot stuff is fun. It's that one for me is a guilty pleasure movie where it's like this is the most ridiculous of the Heisei movies, but I don't really care because it's got robots and flying saucers and time travel and a mecha King Ghidorah, and it's just like, you know what? It's such a crazy movie that I don't care how bad it is. It's sort of like Godzilla Final Wars, where it's everything got tossed in there, and I'm just like, yeah, it's like sure, let's do it. Every single Godzilla monster that you've ever heard of, and most of the ones that you haven't, are going to be in there. Except, was Megalon in Final Wars?
I think he was. It's been a while since I've seen Final Wars. I don't think it was a big role. I think it was at least just a cameo. Probably it's because of the fact that they only could fit in so many monsters. But yeah, and so
I mean, you say that, but they fit in. I mean, they fit in Baragon, Anguirus, Zilla, Hedorah. They fit in Gigan. They fit in.
Did they have Mecha Godzilla? I don't
think they had any of the mecha options. They also didn't have Titanosaurus.
Oh yeah, they didn't. But it was cool by the fact like that they did bring back some of like the Showa era monsters who we hadn't seen ever since the Showa era, like Gigan or Anguirus. And yeah, they also did bring back Manila and. I wasn't too crazy about him coming back. I was like, yeah, it's whatever.
So it looks like Megalon was not in Godzilla Final Wars. I just checked on Gojibido, and his only film appearance was in Godzilla vs. Megalon, but he also appeared in the Godzilla Island TV series.
Yeah, which I have not seen that series. I mean, that series is kind of hard to get a hold of.
As far as I know, it's never even been given an official dub. So even if you find it, it's yeah. And I couldn't agree more with Aberdino. Here it is. We go. Movies and video games aren't supposed to be completely realistic, and I believe that that's what makes them cool in the first place. I agree. Yeah. Like the thing is, Godzilla starts out with a ridiculous premise. The idea that a monster that's so big it couldn't possibly support its own weight is going to come around, breathe radioactive fire on everybody, and cause destruction. I mean, none of that makes sense, but it's cool anyway, so we'll just go with it.
And, and people tend to forget there's a thing called suspension of disbelief. And, just because it's realistic, it doesn't automatically make it good. And I know that we're going off topic a little bit, but that was the huge issue I had with the Lion King remake.
Oh, goodness. Don't even get me started with that.
I hated that piece of crap so much. And even another example, Sonic the Hedgehog. Remember that old design where they tried to make Sonic look realistic? He looked hideous.
Yep, it was terrible. It was one of the worst things that has ever happened to cinema, really.
I mean, that old design was so bad that I can actually see Jigsaw from the Saw movies using it as a torture device on his victims. It was that bad.
Oh, man.
I want to play a game. You don't appreciate your life. So let me show you this shitty design to make you appreciate your life.
I'm going to see if I can do this.
But yeah, we got off topic a little bit.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, look, this is a preview. We're getting a little bit of a preview, guys. There's new movie or new video coming out. It should be up for patrons today, and it will stay up for patrons up until tomorrow evening. Then it will come down to be scheduled as a premiere for Friday.
Sweet.
So there you go. There's it. That's it rendering right now. It's going.
So going back to Godzilla. So if you had to pick one Godzilla movie, what would you say is your favorite one?
Ooh, see, one of the things is that it changes from time to time. I always though come back to a few. Like I like. So I think two of my favorite are probably the original and Shin Godzilla, which tells you probably which tone that I really like for it.
Yeah.
So like I really enjoy the sort of darker tone of the original that I think was very effectively recreated for the 2016 Shin Godzilla.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And actually, one of my friends who is not really someone who enjoys Godzilla movies, and actually, I basically had to trick him into watching Shin Godzilla.
How did you do that?
He's not the hardest person to trick into watching a movie. I'll just say that look, he's a great guy. I really like him, but sometimes he doesn't notice what's going on, and then something like the movie starts, and so this is funny.
I thought Eric was the creationist. He was the poking at first.
This isn't a creationism stream. This is just we're having some fun.
Yeah, talking about Godzilla, and which is funny because him and I both were once younger creationists.
Mm-hmm. But that's not my whole life. Like that's not everything I do. So
I actually would. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. He doesn't really like Godzilla movies, but I got him to watch Shin Godzilla, and at the end he was like, "Oh no, that was a really good movie." I was like, "Yeah, see, I can find a Godzilla movie that you're gonna like. It's a pretty good chance."
One of the things I loved about Shin Godzilla is that it felt like a disaster movie, like say The Day After Tomorrow or Twister or something like that. Yeah, it's like as if they replaced like a tornado or whatever, and they just replaced it with Godzilla, which I actually think is very, very fitting. I mean, it actually is very fitting and like for Godzilla's character, and Shin Godzilla was what I wanted the 2014 movie to be, and so I tried to see Shin Godzilla in theaters. I mean, I tried as hard as I could, but none of the theaters in my area were actually playing it, and I didn't finally see the movie until this year. And oh man, I was blown away. I mean, Godzilla.
Oh, wow, you didn't see it till you took a while to see that. That was a good movie too.
Oh, I did, yeah, but it was just hard for me to get my hands on it. Then I finally did, and I mean, yeah, like I said, it's what I wish the 2014 movie was. And I also liked the fact that that they stay true to Godzilla, but also at the same time though they also weren't afraid to do something different too, like Godzilla being able to do the atomic thing from his spikes and from his tail,
right? But Godzilla versus Ken Hovind in the Ark, who's going to win?
Godzilla.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Godzilla too. So here's the thing about Godzilla movies. If there's ever a boat or a submarine, chances are something bad is going to happen to that boat or that submarine in the Godzilla movie. Nobody
has ever seen a Godzilla produce anything else other than a Godzilla.
It's true. That's true.
and I also thought it was creepy when Godzilla would do his atomic breath, his jaw would open up on.
Yeah, that's actually my what do you call it? My stream starts soon. Where do I even keep that? I don't even know where I have that. I was going to say I'll open it up and share it, but you guys have seen it. If you haven't seen it, go start any of my live stream.
Yeah, and then you'll see it. But yeah, it's just so creepy by the way how he did that. And my only minor complaint, I do wish that they would have gave Godzilla a more original roar. I was kind of expecting that they would have it be a really deep, sounding, very, very creepy roar. I thought that his roar from the 2014 movie was actually a little bit unsettling. And so it was cool by the fact that they used some of the 54 roars, which some of those, I think that those roars are definitely very, very unsettling, and they give you that sense of dread and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that's just a minor complaint, but yeah, and I mean, if they would have just stuck with like the 54 roars the whole entire time, I wouldn't have had much of a problem. But it was also pretty gutsy of them. But yeah, it was different, and that was one of the things I liked about it. It was the fact that, Godzilla like would evolve forms.
Yeah. Well, all of those roars are actually reused from previous films. None of those were made for the movie.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't use a single new roar for Godzilla in Shin Godzilla. Every single one was from an earlier Godzilla movie, mostly from the Showa era.
Yeah, that's right. Like they reused the ones from 54, of course, but they also reused some from King Kong versus Godzilla, and at the very end, they reused the same roar from 1984.
Yeah. What about that ending, though? You want to follow up? So, okay. I don't know if we should get into the ending for Shin Godzilla, because it's a really good movie, and I know that a lot of people probably haven't seen it. So what I'm going to do is first, if you want us to get into spoiler territory for Shin Godzilla, press 1 or hit 1 and type it in the chat. And if you don't, if you want us to shut up and start talking about a worse movie or just a movie that's so much older that at this point, spoilers are coming, put that in the chat as a 2. So, because Shin Godzilla is really good, and I don't want to spoil it if people would rather it be spoiled.
And one of the things that I loved about Shin Godzilla is that pretty much got you to think. Had if Godzilla really were to happen in real life, this is exactly like how the government would react to it.
Okay, well, we have a 69 and a 3. That doesn't really tell me much.
Yeah, that doesn't say anything. But yeah, I definitely would say that Shin Godzilla is definitely one of my favorites, and I definitely love his design.
Oh yeah, the design is still very recognizable as Godzilla, unlike some Godzilla.
Like 98.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's Godzilla proves no Godzilla. I said the same thing.
All right, well, we got a couple ones, and everyone else who has voted has either voted for a number that doesn't matter, or I guess just hasn't. All right, so at the end of Shin Godzilla, there's the reveal that there are weird humanoid Godzilla monsters peeling off of his tail. And I want to follow up on that.
I do too. And,
but it's not going to happen.
And just seeing that was just so unsettling to me. Like, just the whole imagery and the fact that all that they had to do was just show you it. They didn't have to say anything about it. And so then it left to your imagination. They were going to do a sequel, and I couldn't wait to see a sequel. But instead, they're going to be doing a Godzilla cinematic universe.
Yeah. So I want to see that happen, but I don't like that it's at the expense of a follow-up to Shin Godzilla. Maybe they can just put out a novel. Commission someone to write a novel to follow up on Shin Godzilla, and someone should translate it to English, because I know that on my last live stream I demonstrated the ability to read Spanish and Old English, and I've previously done work with Arabic and Hebrew and ancient Greek and French. But for some reason, Japanese is not one of the languages that I really know anything about. I mean, I guess I don't know nothing about it, but I can't read a novel in Japanese.
Yeah, well, to be fair, a lot of people really can't either. And so, I mean, do I understand why they want to do a Godzilla cinematic universe? Yes, I do. It's because of how popular Marvel is. But at the same time, though, Shin Godzilla was a huge hit in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Shin Godzilla was such a big hit in Japan.
It won Best Picture in their National Film Awards.
Right, yeah. And, that is so unheard of for a monster movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, so I honestly think that there might be more money with a sequel to Shin Godzilla, but
well, I mean, it's not. I would say that there is some of the whole we want to do a Marvel thing for Godzilla, but there's also the fact that the Showa series was basically a cinematic universe.
Yes, it was.
They all shared a continuity. It was a little bit hard to, piece together, but it was there, and the previous films were part of the continuity. And I haven't seen Meet the Feebles. I'm not sure what that is.
I haven't seen that either, but
So
but
it's
yeah.
really, Godzilla was one of the earliest cinematic universes out there.
And if you want to go even further, even before that, if you really want to consider this the first cinematic universe, you also could consider like the universal monsters like Frankenstein, Dracula.
Yeah. Dapper took that linguist feat. Makes me jealous. Hey man, next time you hit a level that is evenly divisible by 4 or whatever, or if you're just a fighter, just just take that feat. Going with the the 3rd edition fighter rules where you just got to feat every level.
So so what were your thoughts on like that whole ending reveal in Shin Godzilla, like with all of like those people like Godzilla creatures forming into?
Well, I mean, it seems to me like it was the next form for Godzilla, and the idea was supposed to be that all these little humans managed to defeat him with teamwork. So he's going to go for teamwork because every single adaptation was Godzilla hit some problem. So his first form was just fully aquatic, but it didn't let him get on land. So he gets some legs. Okay, well that's okay, but it's really slow going, and the humans are mobilizing against him. So he gets bigger. Now he can walk around and roar at people. Well, still. While he isn't exactly defeated by the military, it was enough to push him back, so he gets even bigger. But then they drop bunker busters on him and fill him full of blood coagulant. So that didn't really help. So now he's going to be like, well, fine, I'll just become a whole army of little tiny guys who can't just drop bunker busters on, and you can't fill all of us with blood coagulant at the same time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, what I also loved about Shin Godzilla, it was just like the whole sense of when you're feeling it, like just that feeling like of intensity and whatnot, and just a feeling of like this has to get taken care of right away. It was just like like just that feeling of it being like the feeling of dread and and like the stress and everything.
Right. Oh, you know what reminds me? I need to find out if Beethoven. Oh, can you hear that airplane?
Yeah, I did a little bit.
I'm gonna find out if Beethoven's gonna do a Mass Effect stream, because if he is, I'm not gonna run into that because I'm gonna watch it, because I don't know if you know, but have you played Mass Effect?
I have a tad bit, yeah.
Well, it is great, and this is his first ever playthrough of the games. So I'm watching that because that's a rarity nowadays. People nowadays have either played it so many times that they can't even think about it, and or they can't even remember all the times they played, or they've just never played it and don't plan to.
Oh yeah, so now that we're on the topic of video games, have you ever played any of the Godzilla video games?
I haven't, mostly because none of them were on platforms that I had, or none of the ones that were good, and by good I mean good enough, were on platforms that I owned. Like there was a few on the PlayStation, and I never owned a PlayStation, but there were also some crappy ones, like the current mobile one that is basically just an excuse to get you to watch ads, so then you can tap.
Yeah. I played that one, and that one really made my thumb exhausted because of the fact that you have to push it so rapidly. And after a while, I was like, man, this just gets exhausting.
Yeah,
I wasn't a fan of that one.
I think there needs to be a good Godzilla game. Bring back one of those 3D fighters that the PlayStation had. Give it some nice new graphics. Give it some spit and polish. Maybe bring in some new gameplay mechanics and a new campaign, like one of the first PlayStation ones had. It's there could be a lot of fun with it, but the problem is that Godzilla games haven't done super well historically, and so I don't think any of the major studios really want to take a hold of it, and none of the smaller studios really want to try and acquire the license to make another mediocre Godzilla game that probably won't sell super well.
Yeah, and
the PS4 one was so bad, but the thing is, that's about the best Godzilla video game that's been out there. That's the problem.
yeah, and I mean, at least the cool thing about that one is that they actually made, the monsters actually feel like guys in rubber suits.
Yeah.
Well, not, I feel like, just have the persona. So that's cool and all. But the gameplay I heard was terrible.
Yeah, it's not very highly regarded. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, the only Godzilla game that I have ever even played was Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. I mean, granted, it's not a great game, but yeah, at the same time though, I also don't mind a pop in it. I also don't mind a pop it in either.
Actually, I don't think I haven't played through Undertale. I could do an Undertale blind playthrough if I don't have it spoiled. But then I would start, going on my Twitch or something, which I haven't touched in a while. I don't do anything with my Twitch account.
Have you ever seen any of the Godzilla cartoon series?
I've seen a few episodes of the one that came out in, I think it was 94 or 95.
Yeah, wasn't it the Hanna-Barbera one?
There was a Hanna-Barbera one, but I haven't seen any actual episodes of it. But it is the one that got the myth that Godzilla is green really going.
Oh yeah, definitely so, and that even carried on into some of the movies too.
Yeah, well, so in some of the Millennium series, Godzilla had a green tint, but overall, Godzilla has always been a gray monster.
Right.
He's been gray. Now, there are conflicting stories about how Shodai Goji, the first Godzilla suit, was painted. Mm-hmm. So, oh my goodness, Bob Knob is here. Bob Knob is also a fan of Godzilla. So
awesome.
Yeah. In fact, Bob Knob is such a fan of Godzilla that he's even a big fan of the anime series, not the same series, but the anime trilogy, which is not the most well-regarded thing amongst a lot of Godzilla fans. And I get why. Because Godzilla doesn't do the Godzilla thing, really.
Yeah,
you see Godzilla break up a city in the first movie at the beginning.
I had a few cool ideas, but at the same time, though, I won't say that it's my favorite one either.
Oh, it's not going on my favorite list, but I understand what they were trying to do, and they were using characters from Godzilla to tell a story that was not a traditional Godzilla story, and I think it was a good story. But I think that it wasn't the story that got a lot of Godzilla fans were looking for.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But it was cool for me that they reused the Millennium Roar because of the fact that just me personally, my favorite of all the Godzilla designs would have to be the Godzilla 2000 design, and I also really like that roar too. The fact that that's more deep.
Yeah, although I gotta say, as far as Goji suits, the suit used for GMK, I always really like it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It just looks so ferocious, and the all white eyes and that just snarling face. It's a really good Godzilla suit. If you haven't seen Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, all out giant monsters attack the title keeps going on forever.
I swear, like that title is horrible.
It is the worst. It's a really good movie, I think. I think it's actually one of the best of the Millennium. Actually, no, I'll just go ahead and say it. I think it's the best of the Millennium movies.
I would say so too. But just that title.
But yeah, it has the worst title of any Godzilla movie.
It does. It's like, it's way too long. It's too much of a mouthful. It's like, a title like that, who could take a title like that seriously? It's like, why couldn't they just call it something simpler? Like, I don't know, God. Oh, no, wait. What they should have done, rather than calling Godzilla's Revenge, maybe they could have called GMK Godzilla's Revenge. And,
it wouldn't make more sense.
Right. And it would have made sense. It is because of the fact that the souls, of the people who died in the bombing actually, like like was in Godzilla in GMK, so it would have made sense. But yeah, and the fact that Godzilla's Revenge was supposed to be a children's movie, but yet I don't think that the title Godzilla's Revenge screams kid friendly.
Maybe it does in Japan. I don't know.
But yeah, and that title didn't make sense also because who is he getting revenge on anyway?
The bully,
I guess. But but that was more so of the kid.
Bye, Vesta. By the way, also we got Bob Knob saying the worst Godzilla is the latest Godzilla movie, which I assume means Godzilla King of the Monsters. I would not say that is the worst Godzilla movie.
Yeah, definitely not.
Godzilla's Revenge, Godzilla versus Megalon, those are both worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, at least Godzilla versus Megalon has some stupid moments I can laugh at. But yeah, I definitely do agree it's not a good movie. But if I had to pick the truly worst one of them all, Godzilla's Revenge by far. But yeah.
I actually have trouble believing that someone has seen that movie and it is not their least favorite Godzilla movie. It's Godzilla's Revenge.
What were your overall thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters?
I'll say that again. I'm sorry. I was reading the chat.
No, it's all right. I said, what were your overall thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters?
So one, the music was great.
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved the fact that they actually brought back the Godzilla theme.
Yeah, so the Godzilla theme was actually in it. The Mothra theme was actually in it. Also, I grew up outside Boston, so it was fun to see Boston get wrecked up.
Mm-hmm.
And I currently live in Phoenix, so it was fun to see Phoenix get wrecked up.
Wait, you said that you live in Phoenix?
Yes.
Well, that's really interesting because of the fact that I'm going to be going on vacation the 19th. I'm going to be going to Tucson, and I actually saw that there's a science museum in Phoenix, and we actually are going to be going to that museum.
Well, I have a friend in Tucson, so I could possibly even take a trip down to Tucson and say hi. And there's currently a T-Rex on display in Phoenix.
Right. Yeah. That actually was what I saw on Facebook. And then as soon as I saw that, I actually am going to be spending some time. Like with my grandma. And then as soon as I presented that to her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we're going." And the cool thing is, she actually is married to somebody who actually is a geologist. So it's perfect.
Well, and Bob, now talking about Monsters, says he's seen some low-quality Godzilla. That's not my complaint. The new movie was beautiful. The dialogue and acting ruined it for me. I have to agree that if you're looking for a human story, King of Monsters is not a movie that you're going to enjoy. However, I got to be honest, if I just want to see giant monsters pummel each other, it's hard to pick a different movie as pretty high up there for just monster fights. The monster fights in that movie are great. So it's a very uneven. It's almost like the opposite of the 2014 movie where they did a lot of time concentrating on the human characters and the Bryan Cranston trying to solve the mystery of his wife's death and the government cover-up and all this stuff. And it was like, okay, yeah, but where's Godzilla in this movie?
I mean, it's called Godzilla.
Right. I'm actually even wearing a shirt from the 2014 movie, although you can barely tell because the pattern has now basically washed away.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's.
But yeah,
it's very uneven. I'm curious to see what happens with Godzilla versus Kong, which has been delayed, by the way.
Yeah, it's been delayed till November, and you know what I was gonna say. King of the Monsters honestly felt more like a Japanese Godzilla movie than the 2014 movie did, which might have a lot of ideas for maybe why King of the Monsters didn't perform as well at the box office. I think that maybe that people felt betrayed by 2014 by all of the complaints they had about it, or maybe they waited too long to do a sequel. I don't know. But
they certainly waited too long. That's definitely true. It was, what was it, like 7 years or something crazy? Or no, it was 14, so it was 5 years.
So yeah, so maybe that's why. Maybe they waited too long.
Yeah, the only people who cared about 2014 Godzilla by 2019 were Godzilla fans. The average moviegoer had forgotten about that movie already.
Yeah, and it's. I know for sure that it's because of because of the movie underperforming is why that they delayed King Kong versus Godzilla.
It's definitely why it was. I think it was delayed to take into account the lessons learned. But also, I do think it's important to point out that Legendary is not considering King of the Monsters, as a failure as a movie. They're happy that it made as much money as it did, and it definitely was profitable for them. They made money on it. It wasn't as big as they hoped, but it was that they are not considering this to be a failure.
I also think that maybe it was the fact that it had a lot of competition. Like, it had to compete against Avengers Endgame, which, I mean, that was in theaters for the longest time. Man, it was a monster hit. And it had it also had to go up against Aladdin. And it had to go up against that horrendous The Lifeless Lion King remake.
So, by the way, the citizens of Phoenix, because we got Dark Knight's Politics, do they ever get scared by having a literal dinosaur living in their town, or have they just gotten used to it? So, if you're in Phoenix, you're more likely to get killed by a snake or a scorpion or something than you are by me. So,
I see.
And No Name is going back to work.
I do.
And Bob Knob has Shin Godzilla downloaded on Plex and still need to watch it. According to Rotten Tomatoes, it's decent. I was actually just saying, I think before you got here, that Shin Godzilla is one of my favorite Godzilla movies. I would say it's quite good. No Godzilla movie gets great ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. It's sort of a niche interest, I guess, for moviegoers. But if you're someone who, like for me, if you take a Godzilla movie and look at the Rotten Tomatoes rating, you're probably going to have to up it by 10 to 15 points to figure out how likely I am to like it. And so take that with Shin Godzilla. And actually, let's see. What does Godzilla have on Rotten Tomatoes?
From my understanding, the only ones that have that have like a fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes, the original, I think the 2014 movie had like a 60 or so.
Okay, so yeah, it's 86 for critics, 74 for audience. I guess I can see why it would be a critical success more than audience success, but either way, those are both good. And like I said, if you add 10 to 15, then that tells you about how much I'm likely to like it. Probably from, I'd say, that's fair for most Godzilla movies.
And I am guessing that most Godzilla movies, especially the ones where they don't take themselves too seriously, are definitely not made for critics. Like, those ones are definitely more for those ones are definitely more made for to have like a cult following.
Yeah.
And but going back to Godzilla versus King Kong, I am so happy that we're finally going to be getting a rematch because fans have been wanting that for decades. And it was hard to have that happen because of the legal rights. And even though I enjoyed the original King Kong versus Godzilla, it's a fun, cheesy movie, but just special effects wise, let's be honest here, we all definitely wanted a remake.
Oh yeah, I think it'll be fun, but I also think that we'll have the same thing where it's not like it's going to be Godzilla or King Kong who just have an out and out, defeat of the other one. I think they're actually going to end up turning on a mutual threat.
So in other words, it'll be kind of like with Batman v Superman.
Yeah, I think so. Because no one wants to see either of those characters defeated.
I mean, the lesson learned from Jurassic Park 3 with the Spinosaurus versus T-Rex fight.
Yeah. There's when you have two very popular cinema characters, you don't want one to beat the other. The same thing happened with Jason versus Freddy, right? It's not really clear at the end of that who had the better of that Why? Because you don't want to piss off either the Friday the 13th or the Nightmare on Elm Street fans. So you
Definitely
you have a crossover where they're antagonistic towards each other, but neither of them really is the obvious winner at the end.
And then when they made that huge mistake in Jurassic Park 3, they then learned their lesson. And then I think that's why they had the T-Rex versus Indominus Rex a fight at the very end.
Oh, yeah. Probably
And the fact that T-Rex almost died, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're going to make the same mistake again?
You can't kill Rexy.
Definitely not, especially after what happened in JP3. But yeah, and so yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people know about this with Godzilla. So when they were doing the original Godzilla, they were trying everything to come up with a roar. They tried real animal roars, but nothing was working. So then it wasn't until the composer, I'm not that very good with foreign names. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Akaba. I have no idea.
Oh, Akira Ifukube?
Yeah. And so then what he did was that he grabbed like some sort of bass or some sort of string or some sort of stringed instrument, and he got a rubber glove, and then he rubbed it slowly.
Yeah.
And then like in post, he would just slow it down in post or just add to it. But yeah, isn't that really interesting? The fact that one of the most famous roars in history was done with a rubber glove and a stringed instrument.
Yeah, it's definitely an unusual source for that sound effect. And also, apparently, the highest rated Godzilla movie on Rotten Tomatoes is Godzilla vs. Destroyer, followed up by the original.
Really?
Which I find a little bit surprising. I mean, hey, Godzilla 2019 King of the Monsters.
Perfect.
I actually find it a little bit surprising that, Destroyer is a really good movie, and
yeah, it is.
I don't know that I would put it that high. It's probably, it really is sort of the climax of the Heisei era.
Mm-hmm. I honestly do feel like that was the perfect way to wrap up the Godzilla series, but interesting enough, I kind of think that they left a possibility of Destroyer and King of the Monsters. So maybe now, I'm not saying this is fact. Now, this is just a speculation. I think that maybe it's a possibility that King Kong and Godzilla might team up against a fight Destroyer. Maybe.
Oh, he's 29. Speaking about the commenter from Bob Nobby's 2019 King of the Monsters Godzilla, but it kind of looks like Netflix Godzilla in the profile picture. No, that's the 2019 Godzilla.
Yeah, that is a 2019 movie.
Yeah, that's definitely in the 2019. The thing is, actually, the 2019 movie looks more like the anime Godzilla than the 2014 Godzilla does, because they did change the Godzilla design between 2014 and
right.
I prefer the 2019 design.
Right, yeah, and they also even did a tie-in comic to King of the Monsters, and to actually explain why, that Godzilla's fins are different.
I honestly kind of wish they hadn't done that, because, whatever, Godzilla has always been inconsistent. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with Friday the 13th. All throughout all the movies, Jason has never had the same look, but the reason is because of the fact that they have different visual effects and makeup artists coming along. And with Halloween, Freddy Krueger.
Oh, Bob is definitely a Godzilla connoisseur, if we're going to pronounce it wrong, or connoisseur.
Yeah, I think it's connoisseur.
It is connoisseur. I know, it's a French word. I was just being silly. But yeah, the Bob Nobbins said that the 2019 in Netflix Godzilla is a chonk. It's true. He's very, very thick. Yeah. So, but I think one of the nice things about that is that you really can get, if you like movies, there's probably a Godzilla movie that you can watch and enjoy. And Godzilla, I'm just going to call you Godzilla. My day is going pretty well. I recorded and edited together a video that's currently, what do we got?
Excuse me.
74% of the way done. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
my day's been really interesting. So, so you know how on some phones like that they have that whole option about the magnify glass. So mine got zoomed in so much that I couldn't do anything on my phone. I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't call anybody, and I was kind of screwed because of the fact that that was when I just got off work, and I have an alarm system at my apartment, and the only way to turn it off is with my phone.
Uh-oh. That could be a problem.
Oh, yeah. So, and then it was because of that I got all worked up about that. I was starting to panic. It was because of the fact that I didn't want to have to sleep out in my car.
Right.
So, yeah. So I was up all night, literally all night, trying to fix that.
Oh, Dark Knight Apologetics wants Godzilla versus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord movie. So there is a Godzilla. There's a Mecha Godzilla versus Dragon Zord YouTube video I saw.
And who won again?
Mecha Godzilla. And specifically, it was Kiryu. So
which is interesting that they use Kiryu is because of the fact that Kiryu and Godzilla against Mecha Godzilla ran on like with gas, you know, or something to make it more realistic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it had to refuel after an hour or two. And they actually put that in there. They were like, oh, if the fight drags on too long, then Kiryu will just run out of power.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they gave it to it because basically the Sub-Zero cannon or whatever it was called, the Absolute Zero cannon, was extremely OP. But if you think about it, the Dragon Zord is just Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah,
and
what's so funny about Power Rangers was that before that people would mock Godzilla for, you know, being cheesy with the guys in rubber suits, but yet then when Power Rangers came out, it pretty much was, you know, that. You know, like just mixed in with superheroes, and then Power Rangers became such a monster hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was exactly the same thing. They even did a lot of the fights out in the woods to save on money because it's expensive to wreck up a model city every week.
Right.
Go
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers is cringy and bad. It's very uneven, but yeah, it's all a bit cringy. But there are seasons that are better than others. And I ended up watching a lot of Power Rangers when my brother was living with me and he had his daughters on the weekend.
I just thought of this. What I think would be actually pretty cool to see, you know, any of the Power Rangers from any of the seasons going up against Godzilla.
Well, it's going to depend pretty heavily on which Godzilla, though, because
right, and so that's the thing. It really depends on which Godzilla.
I mean, they probably do pretty well against the 1954 Godzilla.
Yeah,
but they probably would have a tough time with, say, Shin Godzilla. So,
oh yeah, Shin Godzilla, that would be pretty tough.
And Godzilla Earth wouldn't even notice them.
Yeah, but probably the easiest out of them all would have to be the '98 one. But the only advantage the '98 one would have is the fact that that one was a lot more. That one was a lot more agile than the other ones were.
Netflix or 2019 Godzilla?
He's thick.
Yeah, it's very true. Hold on a second. Hey, Bob Knob, expect a call from Benthoven.
So
there you go. But there probably is going to be a Mass Effect stream later. So I'm going to type out, I'm going to link in the chat Benthoven's Twitch. So that way, that way you guys can watch it if you want, because it is good. You should watch it.
Awesome. But yeah, I'll try to stay in tune for that. So What are your hopes for the upcoming King Kong versus Godzilla?
I think so. We already know from the news clippings at the end of King of the Monsters that a lot of the monsters are. Wait, do I hate Kong? No, I don't hate Kong. I like Kong. Kong's cool. I mean, he's a mammal, but he's cool. So I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so we know many of the Titans are headed towards Skull Island. So I think the idea is going to start being that King Kong is trying to challenge Godzilla for the alpha top spot or whatever among all the monsters. But I also think there's a fair chance that Ghidorah is going to just come back because what's his face? Tywin Lannister. Sorry, I don't remember the character's name because all the human characters from the movie are kind of forgettable. But I think Tywin Lannister, because if you watch the end credit scene, he's got the Ghidorah head. So he's either going to try and bring back Ghidorah, or possibly they might go for like a Mecha Ghidorah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was starting to think the same thing. Either that they'll bring back Ghidorah, or they'll do like a Mecha Ghidorah, or maybe they'll use some of Ghidorah's like body structures, like maybe they'll use that to form. Maybe they'll use that like to form Destroyer. But I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
Oh, and by the way, so this is in case anyone's watching and not paying super attention to the chat. Check out this Twitch channel, Bent_Hovind. It's my co-host who does the Kent with Ben stuff with me. And by the way, Unidentified Leviathan, I don't say bad things about you, so don't worry. If anyone asks, I'll tell them. I'll be honest. I'll be like, I think Unidentified Leviathan is a cool kid. So
awesome. If the title would this be evidence for creationism?
Honestly, I would say that it would probably be pretty decent evidence for creationism because many of them, probably most of them, don't fit neatly into any place on any cladogram that I've ever seen.
Which actually is funny because the fact that there actually was one creature in the movie called Behemoth. Even the filmmakers themselves even said that they were inspired, they actually were inspired of that creature, like actually from the Behemoth from the Book of Job.
All right. So we did answer this a little bit earlier, but I had said that two of my favorite Godzilla movies, because it's hard to pick one favorite overall, but the original from 1954 and the 2016 Shin Godzilla are consistently high up on my list.
For my top four, it would be the original. A very, very close second would be Shin Godzilla. Third place would be GMK. Fourth place, just mostly for nostalgia's sake, I would say Godzilla 2000.
Okay. I would probably say that I would probably say Godzilla and Shin Godzilla are pretty. Oh, bye, Unidentified Leviathan. Have a good evening, day. I don't know what time it is. Sorry. So GMK is definitely up there, and Godzilla vs. Destroyer is up there. So I definitely get why it's so highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So when they mentioned creationism and Behemoth whatnot, so I remember back in 2010. Now this video does not exist anymore, unfortunately. But a long time ago, I did a video response to it. There was this video on YouTube of like this one person who was making a conspiracy, like that Godzilla actually wasn't just a movie, a fictional movie character, but that Godzilla actually legitimately does exist, and the fact that Japan was able to cover up attacks from Godzilla. I'm like, how in the world can you cover up an attack from a giant monster?
Yeah, that's really stupid.
It is, and they also said that Godzilla was even mentioned in the Bible. I'm like, do you mean Leviathan? But the problem with Leviathan, it's said to have multiple heads, so that would be more in par with King Ghidorah.
I mean, I will say that T-Rex is a much better fit for Leviathan than T-Rex is, or sorry, Godzilla is a much better fit for Leviathan than T-Rex is, which is currently Kent's big thing.
Yeah, and so, and yeah, and just
And Behemoth, hippopotamus is a possibility. I tend to lean towards elephant because I think it fits the nose-piercing snares.
right, yeah, and I actually want to be surprised is if you have came to my conclusion because of like that whole debate like with Cody, like when I pointed that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, there is no dinosaur out there who has a nose that pierces through snares, and a hippo doesn't either. And so yeah, it definitely has. I mean, it definitely has to.
I'm less confident.
Be an elephant.
I think elephant fits best, but I mean, if you want to say hippopotamus, I'll say okay.
Yeah.
But I will say, before you say it's a dinosaur, you're going to have to show me some really good evidence that there was a dinosaur around at the time in place. That it could be.
And the fact that there's no mention of a long neck. It's
right.
Like, why in the world would they leave that out? But yeah, I mean, Godzilla being mentioned in the Bible and the government covering up an attack. I mean, I'll be honest with you. That conspiracy, I would say, is as stupid or maybe even more ridiculous than the flat Earth.
So, by Godzilla reincarnation, I'm going to assume that Godzilla here actually is asking about the suit design, or just the design if it's a CGI Godzilla like the anime trilogy or the American ones or Shin Godzilla. So, my favorite suit is definitely the suit from GMK. I think that's probably the best suit. As far as overall, I really, really like both the 2019 design as well as the 2016 Shin Godzilla design, and I probably would give it to the 2019 design. Because like I said, like my problems with that movie are not in its visuals. It's got a great Godzilla design.
And, probably one of the coolest parts in that movie, the 2019 one, was when they're underwater. And then Godzilla was right in front of them, and the fact that Godzilla's fins were all lighting up.
Oh, yeah, it was very cool.
Really dark atmosphere. That was awesome. They're K-Pain's giant monsters, though, for they're real. Yeah, and what's funny about that snake, when I actually did my debate with Kent Hovind a few months ago, I actually showed him like these medieval carvings of anthropomorphic rabbits riding on top of lions and holding a shield and one on a sword. So I'm like, all right, Kent, so by your logic, anthropomorphic rabbits really do exist in real life. Since that they drew it, they saw it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, and what was it? Was it last night? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. So I did a sort of a midday stream of Kent with Bent because Bent wasn't at work that day, and Kent's going on about the dragons on the Ishtar Gate in Babylon. And so I pulled up a close-up of those, and it's like, this has the head of a snake, the tail of a lion, the front legs of a lion, and the back legs of an eagle. This is not any actual dinosaur species that exists.
Yeah, it's not.
And then he's talking about, like, oh, look, there's a picture of some guy from ancient Mesopotamia pulling the arm off of a dragon. And he just puts up a picture of a straight-up griffin.
Yeah, and even some young Earth creationists will even use Beowulf as evidence, but it's like, first of all, that's fiction, and also, second of all, it says that he was able to rip off the arm of the dragon. Okay, that would be pretty much impossible for anybody, maybe before Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who has arms bigger than my head, to rip off an arm of a dinosaur.
There are definitely dinosaurs I can rip the arms off of.
Like
Microraptor.
Yeah, but say like Baryonyx or...
Well, no, but I mean, how about Mononychus?
Yeah, but the thing is, like that the dragon being described in Beowulf isn't, something actually, like that.
Come to think of it, I have ripped the arms off of a dinosaur. It was a cooked dinosaur, but I did it.
Yeah, true. In that sense, yeah, but... Oh, yeah, so funny that we're on the topic of creationism. So...
I know, surprise, right?
Yeah, so this happened a while ago. So I have a friend named Chris, and mom, and he's dating this one girl named Jess. She's a hardcore young Earth creationist. I mean, so hardcore, like that. She has no idea about the other interpretations, like old Earth creationism, theistic evolution. She thinks that young Earth creationism is the one and only way to interpret Genesis. And so Chris and I, so keep in mind, Chris is actually on the spectrum, if you don't know what that means.
I'm aware.
Yeah, he says he's high functioning, but I say he's medium functioning. So one day when him and I were in the car, the topic of evolution just got brought up. I don't remember how, it just did. And all that I said was that I think evolution is real because of the evidence. And so
mountains of evidence.
Yeah, and so Chris is also a Christian, and so Chris was afraid that Jess would break up with him over it, and so all that I did was say, hey, if that conflict comes up, you can give her these sources like bio logos and etc. And not like that you have to, but it's just something that you can do. So later on that day, Chris and Jess got into a huge fight over it.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, it got pretty bad. And Chris being on the spectrum, he got kind of intimidated like by the confrontation of Jess. And so then to comfort her, all that he did was say, "Oh, honey, you don't have to worry. I don't believe in evolution." But in the car, Chris told me like that he does. And he told me that he does is because that he was taught that in school.
Right.
And then Jess messaged me saying, "Oh, you asshat, what were you doing? You got into his head, making and whatnot." And I was like, whoa, that's not what I was doing at all. And so I was trying to explain to her, all that Chris did was just tell me that he believes in evolution. And then I was like, yeah, you two need to have a talk about it. And so those two had another talk about it, but it got so bad where they actually ended up almost breaking up over it.
Man, that's taking some things too seriously.
Right. And and they're also pointing fingers at me saying that I was forcing my beliefs onto them. It's like, no, all that I did was just state what I believe.
Fair.
It's like I never was forcing it onto them. And it's because of that, both of them now absolutely refuse to even talk to me now.
Well,
over something that small.
But what do you think is going to happen in Godzilla versus Kong?
I am so sorry that we got completely off.
That's all right. That's all right. It happens.
Yeah. But yeah, so what do I think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of said one of my theories. I do think that they're going to go the Batman v Superman route, which actually would be funny, say if one of them were to go, "Save Mothra."
I think. What's your pendant? Is that a claw?
But yeah, God, what?
What was your pendant?
His. This is actually what I got at Universal Studios on the Jurassic World ride. I was actually both a claw and it's a T-Rex head.
Interesting. Nice. There you go.
And so I think that King Kong will have the advantage because of the fact that judging Kong Skull Island, I think that Kong has a much more powerful punch. Like a much more impactful punch.
Assuming that he's about the same size as Godzilla, then sure.
Yeah, and I think that Kong will be more intelligent because of the fact that he's an ape. And I think that Kong might have the advantage with maybe being more agile. But yet Godzilla really has the advantage because of his really thick skin. I mean, Godzilla is pretty much indestructible. And his atomic breath is a huge advantage. I mean, just one hit from, just one hit from that atomic breath, and yeah, Kong's over. Could he really date a creationist, Noah? Trust Ken Hovind. Yeah, well,
Most creationists actually don't trust Ken Hovind. So there's that.
I mean, I can understand why. It's because of the fact that his arguments have been refuted so many times.
Yeah.
And he's still going on about like the Ica stones.
So for me, the thing about the Kong versus Godzilla thing is that, like, you can do like the whole headcanon thing where you're like, oh, Kong has strength or speed or something, but Godzilla has the mass and the fire breath or whatever. But the thing is that doesn't matter, because what's going to matter is what kind of story the writers want to tell and what kind of story Legendary Pictures thinks will get the most butts in seats.
Right, yeah, and I know that this is going to be really hard for some fans to accept, but they can't just make these movies just for fans. They have to make it for a wide audience.
Yeah, because if it's just King or Godzilla fans, because I don't think they're hardcore King Kong fans. I don't know if that's a thing.
There is one guy by the name of Big Jack Films. And I would say that he's both a hardcore fan of Godzilla and King Kong, but it seems like that there's more hardcore fans of Godzilla. At the same time, though,
it's easier to have
for King Kong. If it wasn't for King Kong, though, there would be no Godzilla. So,
but to me, it seems like it's easier to have a Godzilla fandom as a community than King Kong, just because there's more material.
Yeah, and also in the fact that there have been a lot more movies with Godzilla.
That's what I mean. Like, there's been almost 40 movies with Godzilla at this point.
And with King Kong, it mostly has just been remakes. It mostly has just been remakes of the 1933 movie.
Unidentified Leviathan says that. Oh, I'm getting some echo. Why is that? Did you turn me up? Anyway, Unidentified Leviathan says they're going to do something dumb for their agenda. That's wrong there, man. And they will just ruin the franchise. They've done it so many times, and it's really annoying me. I don't see that happening with Godzilla versus Kong. I mean, it hasn't really happened with any of the MonsterVerse movies so far, so I don't know. So my favorite Godzilla monsters from Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I'm going to assume that we can't say Godzilla.
Right. I mean, that would be way, way too obvious.
Probably Scylla, in part because Scylla wrecks up my current city of residence.
One of the things I loved about that version of King Ghidorah. Now, even though that I've always loved King Ghidorah, but let's be honest, his roar was never really that intimidating. But Ghidorah's roar in that new movie was a heck of a lot more intimidating.
Oh yeah, they did a really good job of making it identifiably a Ghidorah roar, while also making it feel like something that is actually scary.
Right. And what I also love, the fact that they gave each three of the different heads their own, like that, they gave each of their own heads a personality.
Yeah, look, for all its flaws, there was a lot of stuff that went right with that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I definitely think I get the criticism, and I share some of it.
I do too.
It also has some of the things that I'm always looking for in a Godzilla movie, which is giant monsters fighting each other. So,
man, it only makes me wish that, back when I was a kid, I just kind of wish that we would have gone a mainstream Godzilla movie like that. I kind of wish that we would have gone that instead of the 98 movie, but...
Well, we almost did.
Yeah, we actually almost did. There was going to be one by the writers or producers of Twister or some... Ted Elliott or... And Godzilla was supposed to... Yeah, like that. There was going to be one in 3D, directed by Steve Miner, who did Halloween H2O. And I believe Stan Winston was even going to design Godzilla. And even his design was leaked online, and it looks great.
Yeah, actually, the leak does look really good. I've seen it. It looks like Godzilla.
Yes, it does. And I believe Godzilla was supposed to fight an original monster called a Griffin.
I believe it was the Chimera. Was the name?
I could have swore it was under the Griffin or something like
I
that.
thought it was Chimera, but I mean, the movie doesn't exist, and so I haven't
Right,
spent a long time looking at it.
The only thing that
So
we really have to work off of it now is, like the original script, if it even was even finished.
Sorry. So unidentified Leviathan. Most people lurk on live chats or on live streams. So yeah, there's probably 12 or 13 people watching because it's not super accurate. But yeah, there's probably only about 5 or 6 people who are active in the chat. So that's a fairly typical ratio. Actually, you don't even usually get that high ratio. It's usually much closer to like 10% or so of the people watching. So like when I have 40 viewers or so, which I can usually get pretty reliably for a Kent with Bent, like there'll be 4 or 5 people who are in the chat consistently.
Yeah. So
actually, percentage-wise, this is a very, very active chat. So hey, Illuminati Dawn is here. Illuminati,
hello.
what have you been up to? And yeah, you are useful.
Useful.
Yeah, we're just chatting about some Godzilla stuff because both Eric and I really like Godzilla stuff, and we have Godzilla here in the chat, so and Dark Knight Apologetics is doing laundry while watching this video,
and we also and I also technically have Godzilla. I also technically have Godzilla in my apartment too. I have this toy here. I also have this little stuffed one too.
I have a poster somewhere in my apartment. I say somewhere like I don't know where it is.
Poster of it. You have the poster of which one?
Actually, I have a poster that is a fan-made thing where I think it's got all the Godzillas so far except the anime Godzillas, and it also includes the 2014 and 2019 Godzillas as separate entries on the thing. Yeah, it's nice. I do wish it were a little bit higher definition than it actually is, and that it
understand that.
hadn't been printed from a JPEG. But whatever, it's fine.
But yeah, the poster that I have is actually like the Japanese poster of Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, blah blah.
Yeah. Also, Unidentified Leviathan says that my live streams come once in a blue moon. I have a live. I think it's rarely that a week goes by that I don't go live. So come on, be honest about this. And Illuminate Dawn is cleaning house and listening to us, so that's awesome. Much appreciated.
Illuminated Dawn.
Yeah.
But yeah, so so besides Megalon and Godzilla's Revenge, what else would you say is your least favorite Godzilla movie?
I mean, 98. Or not 98, but 98, yeah. It was really bad.
And that whole stupid line, that's a lot of fish.
Yeah, that's a lot of, oh god.
Like, is that supposed to be funny?
I think it was.
That's not really funny because that's just stating the obvious. That's like me saying, "Oh, I'm in front of a computer."
Right. It's just like, okay. And also, Godzilla is supposed to eat radiation, not fish.
But yeah, I guess you
pretty bad. Let's see, what else is.
Guess that with that whole thing with Godzilla eating fish, I guess you could say there was something very fishy about it.
Yeah. Now, I actually know some people who really like this movie, but I'm not a big fan, and it's Godzilla Raids Again. Not a huge fan of Godzilla Raids Again. It's kind of
it was okay, but we have to remember that at that time there wasn't a Godzilla franchise.
Right. It established that there was a Godzilla franchise, but taken on its own as a movie, I don't think it's that great.
I mean, I guess it was a little bit revolutionary because it was the first movie where Godzilla fought another monster.
Yeah, it established a lot of the tropes of the franchise and the genre as a whole.
And even in the American version, there were some times when Godzilla would actually have the roar, would actually not have his own roar. He actually would have the roar like of Anguillus. I'm like, why?
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, I don't know.
So my thing though is like, look, I understand the historical importance of the movie, and I get it. It's a very important movie. If we didn't have it, we probably wouldn't have had any of the other movies. However, when someone says, "Hey, let's watch Godzilla," that's pretty much never the movie I'm going to pick.
Yeah, same here. I saw it once on Netflix, and I feel like that I never have to see that. I feel like that I never have to see that movie ever again.
Godzilla Earth does not count as a giant Godzilla. I kind of like the Godzilla Earth design, and I kind of like. Look, I get the criticisms of the anime series. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first and the third one more than the second one. Although, to be fair, the first time I watched the second one, I just got home from working a night shift and I was super tired. And I put it on and I fell asleep through about a third of it. So I did not have the best initial viewing experience for that one. Whereas when the first one came out, it was a day off. I went and I made like nachos, like nice fancy nachos. Like I got my own jalapeno peppers, and I got a special cheese blend, and I put some taco seasoned ground beef on there, and yeah, like I was like, okay, and I made sure to make a nice drink, and I sat down on the big screen TV that I almost never used at the apartment I was in at the time, and I was like, all right, here we go, and yeah, I had a lot of fun. So, who's the most powerful Godzilla? I mean, it's Godzilla Earth, but if we're keeping it out of that, then it's probably either the 2019 Godzilla or Shin Godzilla, and I would probably. For raw destructive potential, I think Shin Godzilla has it just because the atomic breath there is destructive on a scale that I don't think we've seen in any of the other Godzilla. The size of
definitely so. And one of the things I've noticed about the atomic breath is that I've noticed like that his atomic breath, they could go on, like a lot further than in any of the ones before then. And the fact that not just from his mouth, but from his tail and from his spikes.
Yeah. It's not just an atomic breath. It's an atomic everything. It's all over the place. Yeah, so I would say Shin Godzilla. If we're not gonna count Godzilla Earth because he's just so gigantic that obviously Godzilla Earth is gonna take it if you count him.
Mm-hmm.
Shin Godzilla probably has it. Although to be fair, Burning Godzilla might actually be more powerful in terms of destructive potential because if they hadn't stopped him from going thermonuclear, he probably would have caused more destruction than Shin Godzilla did.
Yeah, probably so. And
if you watch, I was gonna say if you watch Shin Godzilla, he wrecks up a lot of Tokyo, but the parts that he doesn't go to, there's a lot of Tokyo that's structurally intact even at the end of Shin Godzilla. Whereas if Burning Godzilla had gone nuclear, yeah, there wouldn't have been a city left at all.
Oh yeah, definitely not. And I think that there was somebody who did like a little fan project of Shin Godzilla versus the 2019 or 2014 Godzilla.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but that's something what I definitely would be. I definitely would be very interested in seeing that.
Yeah, it would be cool. I don't think it's ever going to happen as an official crossover, though.
Probably not.
Well, one thing that I am hopeful for is that while Toho is starting their own cinematic universe, they have told Legendary that as long as Legendary is okay with a new license allowing Toho to make their own live-action movies with those characters, that they'll extend the license for Legendary to keep using their characters from Toho. So we might get more Mothra, King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Godzilla in the MonsterVerse after Godzilla vs. Kong, because 2020 is the year that the current license expires.
Yeah, which is actually kind of perfect that you mentioned that. It's because of the fact that I actually was just about to bring that up, whether or not if you think that Legendary's contract is going to be, if they'll be able to make any more movies. And so, to
some extent, it's up to them. Do they want to pay for that slightly modified contract that will allow Toho to make movies and allow them to make movies? And I don't see why they wouldn't, because the thing is, at this point, you can get in different audiences, because the Godzilla movies that Legendary is making are made to appeal to a broader U.S. audience.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Toho movies are going to be made to appeal primarily to a Japanese audience.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming that they're decent, all of the people that, in the rest of the world who really like Godzilla will still watch them. So I don't think they're actually going to be in direct competition, and they could even coordinate releases so that they don't release movies too close to each other, at least in the same market. So I think it'll be a good idea if Legendary takes the new license, assuming it has a similar price tag attached. I mean,
Right.
if Toho's asking for like $18 billion, then
yeah, no.
Legendary should tell them to go take a hike.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I really do hope that they can continue making Godzilla movies, is because the fact that, us American Godzilla fans, we really haven't had that many chances with seeing a Godzilla movie in theaters. I know that Godzilla 2000 came in theaters, but unfortunately I didn't get to see that in theaters. So, and when Godzilla 85 was released here in theaters, I wasn't even born at that time, and so that's thrown out the door. And so then I tried everything I could with Shin Godzilla when it got released here, but like I said, I didn't have any luck. So the only two Godzilla movies I have seen in theaters was Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters. That's
I
it.
saw Godzilla 98 in theaters.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I saw that in theaters. I saw 2014 in theaters and King of the Monsters in theaters.
So now they say I saw the 98 movie in theaters. So, what exactly are your memories about seeing that in theaters?
The surround sound was cool because that was a fairly new thing for a lot of theaters at the time.
Right.
You were getting like surround sound with multiple channels. Like there had always been a lot of movie theaters that had speakers all over the place, but they weren't set to different audio channels. So that was cool. That was cool. I also remember, like, I was a little kid, so I mean, or I don't know if I was a little kid. How old was I? So that would be, I was still fairly young. So, I mean, I thought, it's got cool monsters, but I did think that the comic relief, which was just constant. Like, comic relief is supposed to relieve you. It's not just supposed to be a constant presence in the movie. So even as a kid, I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, but, and also, the fact that how in the world could they lose, they would say that he just disappeared. How in the hell can a giant monster like that just disappear?
Well, if you notice, when he drops into the water, he barely makes a splash, so... Remember that scene where Godzilla leaps into the water and there's basically no splash at all?
Yeah.
There aren't even ripples?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to believe that there would be no splash at all, but... Had the monster like that, but
there was a badly composited small splash.
But I will admit that this was good filmmaking right here. Like was when Zilla first attacked the city. I will admit that was pretty well done. It was by the fact about how you would only get little glimpses of Zilla. You only would see his legs, spikes, and whatnot. And
yeah, this little reveal was decent. That was well done.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so then in that regard, I can't say that the whole entire movie is bad.
Well, most movies have good aspects to them.
Right. But it's just a matter if it has more good than bad, if all the good outweighs the bad, or if the bad outweighs the good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start wrapping this up pretty soon, maybe 10 minutes or so, because I got more stuff that I have to get done. And also, I believe that Benthoven will probably be streaming pretty soon.
Yeah, with that Mass Effect streamer or something.
Yeah, he's up to Mass Effect 2. He's been doing a lot of the Paragon options. Rex is still alive. He just got Garrus back on his squad. So right now his squad includes Miranda, Jacob, Morden, Garrus, and Zaid. So, but what's your favorite Heisei Godzilla? Let's see. I mean, Return of Godzilla is a lot of fun. my problem is I have a hard time finding a copy of it. Unidentified Leviathan. A Twitch account is free. Just get a Twitch account, man. You can come and comment on people's Twitch streams, and even if you don't have an account, you can still just watch. You'll get counted as a viewer. Heisei Godzilla. So the Heisei series is one of my favorite periods.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me a second. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. But
So when he says that, does he mean favorite Heisei Godzilla movie or Heisei Godzilla design?
I mean, I'm going to assume design because after Godzilla Returns, the designs were fairly consistent.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, just minor changes that you probably wouldn't even notice.
Yeah. So I would say that for movies, probably Godzilla versus Destroya. Although I like Godzilla versus Space Godzilla more than I should. I don't know why. I just do. Design and Roar. Well, then in that case, I mean, I guess the look introduced with Godzilla versus Biollante is probably, and the thing is that there are so few changes between Godzilla versus Biollante and Godzilla versus Destroya
that it really wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are differences, and it's not the same suit each time, but they're so minor that I basically consider them to be the same design. Like they change up like how big the teeth are and how much articulation there is in the lips, and they change the exact shape of the spines a few times, but like it's so minor that I can barely separate them in my mind as different designs.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I think the Godzilla Returns design it's fine. It's just fine.
But yeah, that one out of all the Heisei ones, that one definitely looks the most mean.
Okay, yeah. Actually I will agree with that. It definitely has a much more menacing kind of face than the later Heisei one.
Right.
Although still not as mean as GMK.
But yeah, but as far as Roar goes, for me, it's just that I prefer Godzilla's roar like to be a lot more intimidating. You know, something that when you hear it, you know, it gives you goosebumps. So
Right.
I would say the original Roar, 2000 and the 24 and the 24 and the Roar from the 2014 one.
Yeah, Godzilla 2019 King of the Monsters says the 1985 Godzilla looks very angry, and that's very true. So I'm gonna finish up with making sure that we remember that Adam Morgan super chatted for $2 at the beginning, towards the beginning, that TriStar 1998 Godzilla Theropod was atrocious. I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make sure I read super chats towards the end of streams now. That's a thing I think is a good idea. Anyway, so I have right up in chat as well as up on the stream the link for Beethoven. I'm not exactly sure when he'll be going live, but he said that he was planning on it. It'll probably be pretty soon since I think he's probably home by now. So give it a look. If you don't have a Twitch account, you might as well get one. You can chat. So yeah, hopefully he goes live. And I'm going to close this one down so I can make some dinner, hopefully before he goes live.
All right.
So
but yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. And I had fun. We'll talk to everybody later.
Yeah, for sure. Bye.